Okay, hello and welcome everyone. Welcome to today's session, part of a series of educational events we've been hosting on the new Microsoft Dynamics AX. I'm Jason Gumpert from msdynamicsworld.com, and joining us for today's event is Adrian Orth. He is a Principal Group Program Manager in Dynamics AX R&D. He focuses on client productivity and the app SDK. Adrian's a first-time presenter for us, and we're really glad to have him here today. It should be a great event and a lot of interest in today's event, as there have been, and pretty much everything happening regarding the upcoming release of AX. As we get started, please know that you can add your feedback. You can ask questions throughout the event using the Q&A block that you see to the right of the main presentation window. Adrian will be leaving time at the end to answer questions, so please get those in any time. And without further delay, please allow me to welcome Adrian Orth. Adrian.
Thanks, Jason. I appreciate the opportunity to present on our new Dynamics AX client, specifically talking about the productivity improvements that we've done for the users. In today's session, I'm going to run through predominantly demos on the experience, talking about our navigation, filtering, data entry, and touch on Office integration and some help topics that we have, and close up with just some highlights on our migration process that we followed with this coming release. Within this release, we have a very similar page hierarchy to what we had in AX 2012. We start with a new concept, the dashboard, which is an aggregation of content across the product to provide you with a starting page. The start page that we provide is switchable based on a particular user to, say, an administrator specific page, or to, say, something like employee self-service. And that provides a customized starting experience for users. The next level down in the application is the workspace. This is a new concept. A lot of the concepts from that are pulled from the role center pages that we had in AX 2012. The workspace, where in 2012 we only had one role center page per user, here we've designed the workspace to be a separate page per task area that a user needs to work on that aggregates many actions across that particular task, different entities that you can do actions on, and then drill in deeper into the product as needed. The next level down is our details and transaction forms that are migrated over from what we had in AX 2012, and from there we continue to drill down into the other form types that were available in the previous release. There was a very similar page hierarchy in AX 2012, kind of outlining the structure of the pages, and this is the updated version that we have for AX, the new AX version. With that, I'm going to switch into a demo that'll walk through our client experience. So I want to start by highlighting Lifecycle Services, which is the start of the journey for users with AX. With the sign-in from Lifecycle Services, you'll end up in a list of projects, and I've gone ahead and drilled into one particular project, which represents the entry point into the system. For an administrator who's setting this up, there'll be several pieces of information around managing the project, starting off the kind of communications necessary to complete it, project plan, and in particular, you get into our environments list, as well as all of the different tools to help manage the experience for the system. In here, I'm going to drill into one of the particular environments. Looks like I signed out, and we'll jump back into there.
Hey, Adrian, it looks like you're not sharing your screen yet.
I'm sorry. Let me go back and do that. I missed clicking that action. Is that better?
Yes.
Okay, so
yep,
I was talking about Lifecycle Services and the sign-in process, And here I'm into one of the particular environments within there that provides all of the information for a particular deployment. In this case, you would drill into, as an administrator, to get started on the experience logging into AX. This is that dashboard page that I talked about as a starting experience for the user. It contains information about the current company that you're on, providing favorites, recent, and the predominant region within this is a list of our workspace as listed as tiles that allow the user to navigate in. I'm going to go ahead and go into the customer invoicing workspace. This is a new form pattern that provides the summary section, so it provides a list of tiles and counts representing filtered lists of work that needs to be done for this particular user. The second section contains lists of information. Our lists are set up in such a way that they typically provide filtering as well as actions. And as the user, based on the different tasks they need to do throughout their job, they can switch to the different lists that show them information that's available. These workspace patterns also contain charts and Power BI. This particular one doesn't. You'd see that in the third section right before links. The links provides access to other forms in the product which you might need to do to complete more advanced tasks or when the information isn't surfaced directly within this workspace. It provides the ability to have the related information. Some of the concepts within here is we have hyperlinks within the product that as you click them, you'll drill down into the specific item. If you're not able to complete the task within the workspace, you can now go into the full form experience where you have all of the application capabilities that were there in 2012. For our tiles, those are items that clicking on that, you'll end up opening that up, and now you'll see the list of the 3 items that are referenced within that tile based on the filtering action. So we'll go ahead and we'll jump out of this particular form. Oh, I should mention that in these forms, we also include actions in the application bar that allow you to often create or take some global level actions, which are different than the actions within our lists that are targeted to the specific row that you're on right now. Another type of workspace that we've created, which also can serve as a starting page for users that do not have very many workspaces that they're working in, is the employee self-service. This is a good one for users that are coming into the system where they're trying to take care of time and attendance and other HR functions that they have access to. It provides a different visualization specific to the particular user. And a third type of workspace is one that was used by our system administrators to provide the data management within the system. This one will provide all the data projects, allowing the import, export, and configuration. Different users, based on the roles within the system, can configure the workspace that they want to start up with as a start page instead of using this particular page that you're seeing right now. The next thing I want to jump back into on here is we're going to go ahead and we're going to do a navigation search. In AX 2012, search was available for installations which had set up the SharePoint integration so that you could pull in the data. Within AX, we're now including the search experience immediately in, so it's available for all of the deployments. In this particular one, I'm going to go to the sales and marketing customers list. And while I'm on this form, you'll see that we're now in a list page. This is a restyled form from AX 2012, but you'll notice that it's very similar. We have an action pane up here that contains all of the actions that are available for the user. As you switch, you'll see the various actions that the user has. We have a list of data as well as a fact box region that expands and collapses and as you change rows, you'll see different information being shown for that particular user. Now, I've just navigated into the view, the details view for this particular customer, and now you'll see that we have the series of fact boxes or fast tabs that expand and collapse, similar to what you would have seen in AX 2012. So now we'll go ahead and we're going to drill into a related form for this particular customer. I'm going to open up the transactions. Now, most of the application, as you'll see, I started with the dashboard, I did a search, and I opened up the list, and then I'm now moved into a second form. These forms are all stacked on top of each other as a single-page application. This works well within the browser and other devices that are single screen, but for users that are doing back office functions or have an additional monitor, we have capabilities to open these in a new window. And I'll show that right now through the use of the Open a New Window button. That's going to open that form up and pull that out to a separate window, and then the previous form is now going to switch back to where it was. So I'll go ahead and dock this one form to the side, and then I'm going to dock the original form, the parent form, alongside it. So now you're seeing that I have my US 001 customer, as well as the child form for transactions showing the transactions for that same customer. You'll notice as I changed the form, I moved from a number of columns down to just two columns because I was being responsive to the amount of space that we have. We have built in a very responsive layout engine into the product. This allows us to work on a variety of device sizes. So now I'm going to go ahead and change the particular record that we're on just to show how these forms are still dynalinked together. Now if I switch to the next customer, you'll see not only does the details next to it change to US 002, but you also see that the child window changed to the other customer as well and showed the transactions relative to them. We'll go ahead and we'll close out of this form and switch this back to full size. And as I do that, the number of columns, again, shifting within the product. You'll notice that as content is opened up on the experience, the number of columns are switching constantly within there. And another key capability that we have within the product is to support the zooming. We're taking advantage of the browser capability, and as I start zooming my client down, it may get smaller to see through this recording, but you'll notice that we're fitting more and more columns of information on there. We support going down to 50% zoom if you're very close and on a very large monitor where you need to see more, or if you're on a device that you're farther away, you can then switch back to you can switch your zoom level back to something where you're going to see more and more columns on it. There we go. That's switching on me as I'm doing that. So we'll go back and we'll jump back to the 100% view for this particular form. So we'll go back to our navigation, and I want to highlight some of the other capabilities that we have in the product. One of the things in navigation, you'll have noticed I was using a close button to jump out of the various windows that I'm working in. I can also use the browser back button to do the same thing. Those are both moving back through the stack of the open forms to the dashboard or the starting page that you had for the experience. I talked about the search and how I was able to find the customers. Another common piece that is used within AX is our company selection. You'll notice that as I click that, I get a list of the various companies that are available. I'm going to start typing into there. You'll notice that we're doing type ahead. As I type in the various values, it's filtering down the list. And from there, I get to the particular company that I want, and I can hit enter to select that company. Other elements that we have within our navigation, in addition to our workspaces and the dashboard, is we have a new navigation pane. where this expands out and gives you a list of all of the workspaces. This list of workspaces is the same that you see on the dashboard form itself. We have our list of modules that are available. These are the same modules that you had in AX 2012. We've done some restructuring on them to remove out the common as a group. Instead, we've promoted 2 new organizational techniques. One is that the workspaces for a particular module are listed in a collection. Then we have a list of all of the different areas that are arranged by entity, vendors, purchase order, invoices, payments. And then towards the bottom, you'll see a variety of inquiry and reports and setup tasks that are available. The intent behind this is to simplify the navigation and to move up some of the more common items that users use to not have one extra click to go through common to navigate into that. So one of the things as I'm working through here, I can on any one of these highlight, and you can see a star that appears. As I click that star, I've now marked that one as a favorite, so that if I go into my favorites list, you'll see that vendor payments has been added to there. I'm able to go in and remove that from the list simply by unselecting it. Now, as I navigated through the product, you'll know that this recent collection is being updated with the various forms that I've been moving through as I've been using it. And I can also go in and do the add to favorites or remove to favorites from there. These mechanisms provide users with a variety of ways that they can get into them, whether it's by module navigation through the use of the search. For the common areas that they're spending time in the product, this recents list is building up for them for places they've been recently while interacting. And then those that they use longer term, they can end up marking as favorites and providing them with another list that they can get into within that product. So now this is a web-based application. Right now I'm demoing within the Edge browser on Windows 10. We do support on the Windows platform IE 11, Edge, and Chrome. On the iPad we're supporting Safari. On the Macintosh we're supporting Safari. And on Android tablets we're supporting Chrome. We're relying on all of the modern browsers for this functionality. And it provides us with the ability to run anywhere, anytime, and provide users with a great level of access to the product. So now I want to switch in and talk a little bit about personalization within the product. In our user options form, as I open that up, you'll see that we have a number of settings that a user can do that'll help them out. In particular, the personalization tab. I can select my default view and edit mode. We start with view by default to ensure that users do not accidentally make edits within the product. I can go ahead and select my default company. Right now it's set to DAT, but I'm switching from my navigation bar, so that's an option. I mentioned early on that I could change my start page. These are the 3 options that are available out of the box, but it's extensible through developers to add additional items into this list as choices. The intent behind here is an administrator will often set the initial start page for users. Whether they're a typical user with a number of workspaces, the default dashboard is a great choice. Whether they're an administrator that has a variety of access to the system, they probably would take the system administration and focus just on what they need to do for their job. And those users that are using mainly time and expense type functionality would use the employee self-service. We support a variety of theming. We're aligned within the product to Office 365 in terms of the colors. Looks like I restarted on my browser as it went through and it switched there. As I switch my colors over, it should just do a quick flash and you see that I'm switching from one theme color to the next within the product. We also support density. The default density is aligned to work, well with both touch and keyboard and mouse. But for those users who want to see more information on screen, we provide an option that moves to smaller margins between all of the elements, so things are more condensed. This provides a visual and information density that's very similar to AX 2012. If you compare the data entry grids and forms between the two, you'd see a similar number of lines that can be shown in the dense mode. However, we don't use this as the default because we are encouraging users to use a variety of inputs, including touch, and then that's getting a little bit tight for them within that mode. So we'll switch back to our higher density or our low density, as well as back to our theme color. Continuing on to some of the user options that we have available. In language and regions, we're using a system-based profile or server-based profile that maintains this information in the cloud with your user. Your language selection controls the labels that you end up seeing on the product. This isn't something we rely on the OS anymore. This is all selected within the product. The same thing with the time and the date, time, and number formatting. We're using the language list, and then that maps into the thousand separator, decimal separator, the order of the elements within the date and the time, as well as providing our country, region, and our time zone support for users within this one particular page. So those are some of the user options that are done globally within the product. We're going to jump out now and go into a particular form. I'm going to go back to using our favorites. I'm going to navigate to the customers, and I want to show some of the other personalization capabilities that we have within the system. Just like we had in AX 2012, we have the ability to make changes on a form. Let's go ahead, and I'm not using this extension column at all. I can right-click on there, personalize the extension field, and I pull up a tooltip, a popover that allows me to do a number of things. In this particular one, I wanted to remove the extension field because it isn't something I need within it. And as I click that, you'll see that the field is removed right away. If I wanted to go in and change the telephone number, I can change the label for my own use to say primary telephone number. Maybe there was a secondary one that I was going to pull in, and I wanted to be able to see both of them and be clear as to which one the telephone number was. I end up using customer group, more important than I would the accounting invoice. Especially if I'm in a smaller screen resolution and I'm limited on the amount of information I can see at one time. With this, I can go ahead and I can do move left, and you can see how I've switched the order of my fields around within my grid itself. There are some other options that I can go here, and I can do import and export. The current release is focused on a single user personalization experience, and we allow them to be exported and then shared with other users. We also allow you to select whether this particular form opens in edit mode or in view mode. Earlier you saw that I had shown on the user options form a system-wide option. This is a particular one now where I can see it within this particular experience. And I have the ability of clearing out the personalizations if I want to undo and go back to the base set of capabilities that we have. Now, for users who are doing data entry, there may be other information they need to put in the grid for the bulk edit. So we can go ahead here and say personalize our grid. And then that's going to add another option that wasn't available on a single column. This is the add a field experience. In the add a field, we're going to go ahead and open up a dialog. This is the new mode for dialogues within the product. They open up as a slider coming out from the right-hand side. I can go in here and I can pick some other fields that I would like to see, like credit limit and commission group. And when I hit insert, you'll notice that those didn't get added to this, so we will go ahead and restart this form. We're working to get that so those will automatically appearing on the list as the user does the action. And when this loads up, you'll now see that I have my additional columns of information available with the commission and the credit limit showing up within this list. So those kind of highlight a number of the capabilities that we have in terms of personalization. The same types of operations are available in the details view. Had I gone into, say, this one particular record where I'm on my FAST tab, you'll now see I could do something like my ABC code, and in this particular case, I can now include it in my FAST tab summary field so that I can see the additional information up there as well. So that helps out users when they're in a collapse mode and need to get information at a glance for what they're doing right now. Okay, we'll switch back to our grid view within this particular form. Oh, went back one too many times there. We'll open up our customers. Now we want to talk a little bit about the filtering behavior that we have within the product. In this particular form, and just like list pages in AX 2012, we have a quick filter that allows us to start typing in information. So if I wanted to do US on the, let's go with Contoso, on the name field, that's going to now filter down the results that I'm showing within this experience. This is the experience that we have on a number of grids in the product. In 2012, it was predominantly our list pages that had the quick filter. Now in the new AX, we have that showing up in a number of places. Here's the navigation list that's over the same query or the same set of records. You'll notice that I'm sharing that same value there. And as I open up other form patterns like simple list and details and the simple list, you'll notice that the quick filter is something that we're using in those places as well. So now going back to our grid experience here, we can go ahead and we can click on the arrow next to any given column, and we get into our column filtering and sorting experience. This is aligned to the Office 365 product. We're using many of the same kind of capabilities that they use within there in terms of the sorting. We have a new set of operators that we've changed to. These are more understandable by users in terms of the language that we're using. We have begins with as the default operator within there, but the user is able to switch these, and then we remember which one they choose even after they leave this form and come back. For those power users familiar with the more advanced syntax that the prior releases provided, we do provide the matches operator at the end that takes the full range syntax with the special characters that were available to do the filtering in the past. So I'm going to go ahead and use my begins with to filter this down to the set of customers that are in customer group 30. Now, that experience works well for a place where you have a collection of records and you want to narrow down to a specific one. Now we'll go ahead and we'll open up our filter pane, which is a better user experience for collections of information and allows you to add fields that aren't necessarily in on the screen right now, or they're not part of the grid that you're in. So if I wanted to have, say, account number be one of my filters, I could then pick that, and that field goes in and adds in as well. We've simplified down the number of filtering options that the users have within here. We've provided improvements to the language to make them more understandable, but still providing the power that you had in AX 2012. One last one I will talk about for those users who did use some of the features that aren't in the filter pane. We still have the advanced filter and sort dialog available through the options tab. That's going to go ahead and open up a slider dialog that you'll see contains the operator, the begins with operator, using the more advanced syntax, the range expressions. Customer group 30 star is doing that same filter operator. So you can see how our filters that we're providing, whether it's the grid column filter, the filter pane, or the advanced filter experience, all tied together to show the same information to the user. They're all connected in the experience. So we go ahead and close out of there. The next item I want to jump in and talk about is the data entry experiences and the improvements that we've done in that space. For that, I'm going to go ahead and go to our sales order form, and we'll go ahead and start the creation of a sales order. Now, within here, we have a number of shortcuts that we've started providing. As you hover over the various buttons within here, you'll notice that I have Alt-N, Alt-Delete. We've done a lot of work to maintain shortcuts coming over from the AX 2012 product. However, browsers which we're running inside of, each one of them takes various shortcuts that they use for their own purposes. For example, while I'm in Edge and Chrome, the Control-N creates a brand new tab for the user as opposed to creating the new record. So we had to change our shortcut to be the Alt-N, and as part of that, we then switched the delete shortcut to be Alt-Delete to align with that. So we'll go ahead and we're going to, and I'll use the keyboard shortcuts as we're working through this to show how productivity for the user can be done just through the keyboard alone. In this case, I did the Alt-N, and now you see I've opened up the sales order. One of the things about data entry is we provide the mandatory and validation indicators right in the fields that are necessary. This particular one is requiring a customer account number. Now let's go ahead and type in an invalid customer account. And as I tab out of there, you'll know that it switched over to give me both a validation message right within the product with a tooltip that shows what my invalid value was in the message. And on forms or dialogues, we're showing in a message bar at the top where the error was happening. We'll go ahead and we'll go ahead and clear that value out and start typing in a valid value. Now, one of the things about this version, we've changed to have lookups do type ahead capabilities. As I started typing, the lookup automatically opened and the values that matched that were shown in this list. So I could go down here and pick one of them, just by arrowing down in my list because it was narrowed down. I'll take Forest Wholesaler. And now it's gone ahead and done all of the defaulting logic like we would have had in AX 2012. I can, through the keyboard, use the Alt-down arrow to open up the lookup again, which is now positioned to the record that the user was on. But I want to show another capability because often users had to filter within our lookup forms. I want to go ahead and type Contoso as the name. That was the name column and not the account number column. In this case, we realized that the value being provided was not an account number, nothing matched to that. So we're doing our type ahead based on the name column, and now you're seeing the different values that are available. And I can go ahead then and arrow down until I come to the one I want. And the more details you provide in that lookup type ahead, the more restricted the list gets in terms of the values you're choosing. In here, I now can do the enter key. The default actions will fire for those so that I can continue with my data entry. I have all the information I needed for my sales order available. Now, in the sales order, I'm on my lines. Again, I will do the Alt down, and I'm going to pick just the first one in this particular case. And let's just tab through here, and I know I need a site number. I'll arrow down. If I had started typing, it would have started doing the match. In this case, I was just using the keyboard actions to work through it. And we support the arrow down key within the grid. That's going to go ahead and create my brand new record. You can see that I'm ready to start typing in the next item that I need for my sales order. Now, we've provided a number of shortcuts in the product, but we can't get shortcuts for every single action. Within the sales table form, there's more than 250 actions that are available. So we took a feature that was available within Office, and we called Tell Me, and we've implemented the equivalent within AX. So if I do the Control apostrophe, you'll notice that this field opened up from the light bulb to perform an action. I can now start typing within here. I can want to look for on hand because I need on hand information for the particular one, nope, that was a line that I didn't have. Let's switch lines. There we go. I was on the wrong record. I didn't have one yet. On hand, there it is. And now I can take that particular action and I will open up a dialogue with the information relative to that record. We are currently providing the shortcut keys from the system. We are going to, in a future update, provide the ability for both developers and end users to start adding on shortcuts. And for those places that are beyond the shortcut, we have the action search within the product. The system continues to use the implicit save model as you're navigating through. We're going to do the saves within your records, but for those places where you want to do an immediate save on what you're doing, you can either use the button for that, or we have the Alt+S capability within the product. As we go into other views, for example, I wanted to open up my sales order header. I can do the Alt+1 key, which is going to open up the sales header. So we have shortcuts that allow us to control all of our different fast tabs within the product in terms of which ones they open. Right now I'm in edit mode in this. I can use my Alt F2 to switch me back to my view mode so that I don't make any accidental edits. And then I can do Alt F2 again or F2 again to switch back into a mode where I can do all of my editing. Just to show you some of the different capabilities that we have in shortcuts, I'm going to go use our help experience on this. And within our help pane, we have both wikis and task guides. I'm going to start off by highlighting some of the shortcuts that we have available by going to our wiki, and then I want to, right now it's showing contextual help for the user based on the form I'm on. In this case, I actually am looking for information on shortcuts. So I'll type that in, hit enter. This is going to go off to our new wiki where we're publicizing our information. The wiki is going to allow us to be more faster and more flexible in terms of the content that we're showing to the users. It's easier for us to update the information on that. We're moving towards a model where we allow authenticated users to add new content, to make edits, as well as to submit comments back to the system so that we can improve the content of our help through the use of the community. And this one doesn't seem to be opening up my shortcut content right now. Okay, I'm just going to go ahead and jump to my AX help and just show you through the direct access to the link. This is pulling up one of the pages that we had on there. Okay, doesn't look like that's coming up right now. But what you would see in here is a list of the wikis, just like you saw when I didn't have my search. Shortcuts come in, and we have dozens of shortcuts that are available within the product that the users can see and use. In many cases, we provided multiple shortcuts to the user because to allow the AX 2012 shortcut when it was available. Allow the AX 2012, but we also have a primary shortcut that we're using, and the primary shortcuts are the ones that you'll see in tooltips where they're uniformly available across the different browsers that we're supporting. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and show you a little bit more about this help pane experience by jumping to our customers list again. And from there, you'll see the list of wiki content that's available for this customer. As well as the task guides that we have. Nope, looks like we're having some problems with the wiki right now. Task guides would show the list of content that we have, and this is a new capability within the product that builds upon our task recorder from AX 2012. Right now, you'll see that I have task guides relative to this particular, the customer form. And these are all ones that we've set up that have an association that reference or start or have some relation to that. If I click on one of them, you'll see how it opens up. And for an experienced user, who's normally working quite a bit within the product, you can simply use this list of detailed steps to remind them as to how to go through the flow that they need to within the product. We're going to go ahead now and switch over to the sales order, and I'm going to show you then how we can run through one of these task guides, which helps a user in a more integrated way, especially a user who's not as familiar with the product or is new. This will help them go through some of the common steps that they need to do within their system. So one of these will be create a new sales order. Again, the steps are available for those users who do not need any more information. In this particular one, I can click on my Start the Guide, and I will have an interactive tooltip that comes up. In this particular case, it's telling me to go to the accounts receivable, orders, all sales orders. I've already done that step, so I'm going to go ahead and say skip. Now it's continuing me on, and it's giving me detailed instructions about how to complete the process, as well as the type of things that I can do. For example, it says that how we can do the search filter and list just like you need once you're created. So here I'll go ahead and do the create. This is very similar to that process I had done for the data entry user that was experienced. You see how the tooltip is advancing through as I'm making the edits within the product. I'm going to pick one of my rows. I go to OK. Everything along the way is navigating the user, and it's more working across forms. So you stitch together a task guide that provides all of the steps for the user that goes through a longer and complicated process. You'll both see the information within this tooltip, as well as a list of steps in the side that allow you to know kind of where you are and what are some of the next things. I can go ahead and hide this list of steps if I needed the screen real estate to see more information on screen, or at any point I can go back and click my show steps within the process. Where I think I've gone far enough on this, I can go ahead and click the stop on the task guide. And now we're back to the instruction experience, and you're now seeing, now we're back into the product itself. Okay, the next area I want to go ahead and talk about is Office integration and the capabilities that we have there. For that, I'm going to jump back to my favorites and take a look at the customers list. And I wanted to highlight some of the capabilities that we have. From 2012, we had the ability to go ahead and export information. Now, I can go here on any of our grids and do the export all rows. This takes the list of information that's currently queried on this form and is going to go ahead and open up Excel and show me that data, populating based on what you'd seen in the form before. There, it's going to open that up, and now you'll see that I have the list of all of the information, including the added fields that I put onto there because of my personalization that I had done at the beginning. So go ahead and close that out. A second experience that we have is in our Open in Microsoft Office. We have the static export here below, but we all, for just the exporting, but we also have the ability to open in Excel that provides us with quite a bit more capability. In this particular case, we're going to open up Excel with an Apps for Office plugin. I need to go ahead and do Enable Editing. That's going to open off to the side here. You see a Microsoft Dynamics plugin, and it's going to then be authenticating and connecting back in. We've provided it with enough information to start with so that it can pull in the query from the data that I had. Oh, did not authenticate. We'll go ahead and try and authenticate into there. And then it's going to retrieve the registrations and complete the pull-in. This information will save your registration, so next time you go through, it shouldn't request the same amount of information in terms of the time. Now, some of the power that we have here isn't that it's a static list, but more this is a dynamic based on data entities that we have within the product. You can see how I pulled in all this information, filtered down based on customer. It's not the same number of fields because I've actually pulled in information from our data entity. The key that allows me to do is do editing within here. I can go into this one, and I can now change the value from 90 to 30, and let's go ahead and change out of there, and we will publish that row back to the product. Now, I was changing DE001. So as I go back into my list, you see I have DE001, and I'm still showing it with a 90. So we'll go ahead and refresh our data on this screen, and now you'll see that that was switched to 30. And we'll go back and reset our data in this particular case. If I go ahead and publish it, the same thing can happen if I changed it within the client experience. I could hit the refresh and get back into there, go back into it, and now I can pull it up and see. In addition, we have the capability from AX 2012 in terms of doing attachments. This will open up a new form that includes the attachments we can do, and we have a new previewer. If I gone through and I added a record into here, you would see a Office 365 preview for that particular document shown within the product itself. Okay, I'm going to go ahead now and switch back to the slides, and so let's go ahead and stop the sharing. So I want to talk a little bit about just the migration process in terms of what we've done. We've taken the rich client from AX 2012 and we've moved all of its capabilities into the browser with a high level of compatibility. We did this by supporting a migration tooling that takes your AX 2012 metadata and forms, and we migrate those in. The same concepts are available in our new development experience that you had before, but under a new group called user interfaces. On the right-hand side, you'll see the collection of our user interface elements within our Application Explorer. Forms, menus, and menu items are familiar concepts from AX 2012. We added the tiles as a new concept that allows those counts that you saw within our workspace and sharing those across, and then those end up opening up menu items. And then for our new extension model, we have form and menu extensions that allow non-intrusive customizations within the product. As you look into an existing form, for example, you'll notice that it has very similar structure in terms of methods, data sources, and the control hierarchy that's available. We provided compatible controls. We had to take and rewrite all of the controls that we had because they were based on Win32, WPF, or WinForms, and so we ended up recreating them as HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Now, normal developers do not need to know the web technologies to use this because the platform isolates them, and this was part of our compatibility. We maintained the same control, metadata, and programming model as much as possible in this migration. The areas where we did have to make changes typically related to performance challenges or concepts that were incompatible with the new web technologies that we're taking advantage of. A key part of this process was taking our form styles that we had in AX 2012 and migrating them into form patterns and a new concept, which is our sub-patterns. The form patterns provide the top-level structure for the form and helps enforce all of the layout rules necessary to make the application responsive. And the sub-forms work at a level below that. In 2012, if you had content within a fast tab, there was nothing that we provided to ensure that the metadata was set correctly, short of a couple of BP rules. Within this release, both the patterns and sub-patterns are now part of the compiling process, where once a pattern is set, we enforce that as a structural element and give errors when the development changes things that doesn't align. This provides us with very rich responsive layout and guides development. And in those few cases where the existing patterns do not meet the need, there is the ability to specify a custom pattern, which allows you to manage a lot of the layout on your own, but that requires more testing due to the responsive nature of the product. As I mentioned with our patterns, these are examples of some of the tooling that we provide. The bottom image shows the pattern matching that tells you whether you have the pattern correct or if where you have an error. The ones to the right gives a list of the different patterns that are available either at the design level or at a particular container control level like a fast tab that help guide the structure within the tooling. Now the result of that is we were able to take list pages, as you can see on the left, in AX 2012 and migrate them over to the AX7 experience, and you'll see that the same elements are available with some different styling that we have that helps us align with Office 365. But from a concept perspective and a user experience as to how the flow and the type of capabilities that are available within the product, they're continuing to they have consistency for that migration. The same thing happens within our details page. You'll notice the fast tabs on the left and now a stylized fast tab on the right. And then our dialog experience is switched from a separate window, which doesn't work well within the browser, to a docked experience on the left side or right side as a slider. This is all kind of helping to promote our single page application, but as you saw earlier in my demonstration, we have the ability to open up into a new window. Another capability I didn't highlight was how the URL can be reused based on the current context that's available, and then that could be put into another tab to start a parallel session that you might need to be using, much like you would have had launching a separate workspace in the past. So that ends the demonstration that I had for the product. I'm going to go ahead and take a look at some of the questions that came out as we were going along. If anybody else has additional questions that they would like to ask at this point, if you can go ahead and put those into the Q&A session, I will try and take them as they're coming in. First couple, we're just talking about me not getting my screen shared.
And Adrian, if you look for the ones that are marked as white status, those are the ones that are unanswered.
Unanswered. Okay, thank you. Is there a limit to how many windows that can be opened at one time? There are some limits in the product that we need to do to maintain operations. The product is, in 2012, you were running all of your forms client-side, so all of your memory was taken up by where your client instance was. Now you're running all of those forms on the server in the cloud, and so it comes into the memory capabilities that you have. To the degree you're able to put more equipment at it to scale out, you know, there are things that can be done, but we're managing down the number of windows, and we're using a more aggressive closing mechanism, because in AX 2012 we found that users were opening windows and then they were getting lost. So as you interact with a particular browser tab, the forms are being stacked, and as you close them out, those ones are going away. So we're doing more work in this release to manage the number of windows, but you can open up, as I had shown, the open a new window. There's a couple, you can go 2-3 levels deep in the Dynalink, much like you did in 2012, and it's possible for you to open up a second tab within the browser to start a session. The second question I see is, how do shortcut keys navigation with the different use of browsers? As we were doing our analysis, we looked at all of the shortcut keys that the different browsers are taking, and then we designed or selected shortcut keys for the product based on the ones that were available uniformly across the browser. In some cases, that caused us to change the shortcut that we wanted from AX 2012. In those cases, we've often left multiple shortcuts. I couldn't get to the Wiki page to show you our shortcut list, but you'll see on there a primary shortcut followed by one or more secondary shortcuts, sometimes to highlight what were the alternates that were possible within the product. A question is, how can a user open an extra workspace as a separate tab within the same browser window but not a separate window? That's not possible within here. You'll need to, if you want to start over like you would have had in 2012 with a new workspace, you can open a new tab. Some of the browsers have a Control-K shortcut that copies the current URL. Whether you're on the dashboard or, say, a customer list page, that will be placed as the starting point in the new tab and allow you to continue. The other option is the open in new window. If there's another ability that you were looking at, that may be something for you to follow up with the product team, in terms of a request for the interaction you're looking for. The next question was around, is this AX 2012 or is it version AX 2012 or is it similar with the AX7? This is the version AX7 in terms of the product. From a naming perspective, we're calling it Dynamics AX or the new Dynamics AX, just to indicate that this is the updated one. We're moving more, we've taken the number off of the official name of the product because we're doing more frequent updates to it, much like many cloud solutions have. But we started with the AX 2012 R3 CU9 set of functionality, and for the most part that was all migrated over and brought up to work. There are a few capabilities from that release that are still coming in future updates, but for the most part you'll notice that all of the concepts, the forms, came over with fairly minor changes from 2012. The key thing you'll notice is that we did a lot to take and interpret our metadata that already existed and provide a Office 365 aligned visual experience that works on the web while trying to minimize the amount of work necessary for developers to make that transition. Next question was on, can you filter multiple columns at the same time? In the grid column experience, you can do one at a time by opening each one, and it will filter as you close each of the experiences. I also had shown the filter pane, which allows you to filter multiple columns from the grid or other fields, and the sysquery form is effectively the same as what it was in 2012. There was a question on how much bandwidth is necessary for running this client. That's getting into a little more technical detail, and that's something we'd want to follow up on specifically. But we are observing watching the amount of bandwidth that we're taking in terms of what has to come down. And we are doing some caching so that when you pull up things that have images on the screen, especially those that are from metadata, the images come down once from the web server and they stay in the user's cache. We also have form level caching where the definition of the form you do, the first time it opens comes down with all of the metadata, and then everything after that is the deltas. So the second time you open up, we reload that form definition, the original one, from the client-side cache, and then we send down the deltas on top. Those are some of the techniques that we've done to minimize the bandwidth necessary for the product. Is it still possible to a virtual setup sharing data across different companies? That's a feature that I'm not the one to talk about. We'll have to try and take that one offline and connect you with your right people. So here's a great question. What do you think are the 3 top features that will be most impactful for productivity for the average user? I believe that is our task guides. It helps both the new user and the experienced user by providing them a very interactive approach to move through the product. A second one I would say is our lookups, where we have the type ahead experience, where users can start typing either the key field or the description field for that, and then we start filtering down the list. And the second one, based on feedback from users, is the action search. The key tips experience from AX 2012 didn't provide the same level of productivity for users, and as we've been doing usability studies, we've gotten very positive feedback on the action search capability for users to quickly find their actions. The next question talks about the client responsiveness, and is this presentation Azure hosted? If this representative of a typical deployment. This deployment is a cloud deployment. We have this one deployed as one of our regular instances from our internal development through LCS. It is on Azure in a US data center, and this is an example of the experience that we're seeing as we're running through the product on a regular basis. There are options within Azure in terms of the size of equipment that can be selected, and I can't speak quite to that. But we've done a lot to ensure responsiveness, and that's an area that we continue to monitor and work to make improvements wherever we find places that the user experience isn't snappy within the product. The next question was this CTP8? Yes, CTP8 is the community preview that's in the process of coming out right now, and I'm highlighting a very recent build from that. What should we do to prepare to have this client? The tooling that we have right now for the migration process is based upon the AX 2012 metadata. We have a lot of process and tooling that we put into LCS that takes existing 2012 models and runs them through a converter. With this release, we've written quite a bit in terms of code upgrade rules and best practice rules. Many of them have automatic fixers that can make some of the more repetitive changes that don't require interaction from a developer. And then we provide estimators that suggest the type of things that need to be done within the product. We're also working on a checklist to help ISVs, hit the same level of quality as what we have within the product and the types of changes that we did. A lot of the tooling makes a very fast switchover, but there are some areas that require, continued work for development. But because we based it on the metadata from AX 2012, it's a very direct process with, specific steps to go through to move the client over. There's a question on the AX configurator functionality. That's not something I'm familiar with, so I won't be able to jump into it. What is the criteria for the delete option within a sales order? We do have deletes. The delete button was available within there in terms of the delete of the record, the sales order records. It's based on the same application functionality that was in 2012 for the most part, unless there was some enhancement that team was doing as they went and did their migration. That would be something, if you needed more details, we'd have to follow up with the owner of that team or of that form. Somebody had observed that the focus didn't go into the item number field. I had seen that same thing. It's supposed to go into the item number for productivity reasons. Those are some of the last items that we're working on in terms of user productivity, is ensuring that focus is going into the correct field as you're moving through the order. Different browsers have different focus interactions, and this is one of the areas that we're trying to manage from a platform, is ensuring those the focus is being managed correctly, and we understand how important that is for users to be productive. Are task guides extensible for customer-specific content? Yes. That actually was something I had hoped to demo, but ran long on what I was showing. You can go through under our options form or options thing in the nav bar, and then you can start a task recording. The task recording was rewritten from AX 2012, and that's how we collect the task guides. So you start the recording, you give it a name, and a pane opens up on the side, and then you start running your process. The advantage this task guides and the recording gives is for a specific customer installation, you may have customizations that you've done, you have specific ISVs, and the form content really changes based upon that, and your business processes could be different than another customer. We're providing a number of these task guides out of the box, but you could create your own task guide and then publicize to either your own project, business process model in LCS, or copy ours and make a replacement on. There's a number of capabilities that we have to highlight. Can this guide feature be customized? Yes, essentially what I had just talked about. Are these steps related to the activities in the BPM and LCS? Yes. The task recording that I was showing is actually uploaded into there, and the same steps are done. We're using that task recording as I step through the product to gather all the information that highlights the BPM modeling. Question on can we test AX7 preview? The AX7 is going into a public preview soon. I don't have the details on that, but I know that it's on its way, and that will allow broader access to the product. With our initial release, we are only releasing into Azure for use of the product, as a multi-user. We do have virtual machines that developers end up using, where there's Visual Studio on that, SQL Server, and the client. So you can, as a single developer, run it locally as part of a virtual machine that runs the same client, which is really our developer scenario. I'm going to defer on the question of the Office versions that are supported. I don't have the answer to that one. I need to check in with somebody else. Does the business logic defined in Does that use the business logic defined in AX to validate right? Yes, the business logic in AX is used as part of the product as it's going through. The validate right is one of our events that is available, and it's continued to be used. When editing in Excel, all of the validations are done. The edit in Excel is using our data entities, and the developer is responsible for ensuring that all necessary validations are implemented within the data entity so that the user gets the validations. I'm guessing that was related to the prior question on the validate right. I'm not able to demonstrate the printing process. We would have to follow up with another team relative to that. Is it possible to personalize the width of columns? Oh, that's a great question. In AX20, or in this version, we had to change the calculation of the column widths. That is one of the very first personalizations that we enabled. I'm sorry I didn't show that. If you grab the separator between the columns and click down, you can then resize, and then we remember that across the use of that form. Another key change is 2012 used to save personalizations per company. We're now saving them across all companies or as global data so that you don't have to repeat the customizations in a different company. Addition of users, we have the users form just like we had in AX 2012, but it requires that the user is set up as an Azure Active Directory user, so there's a few more steps involved. The next question is around the development. Is it done in Visual Studio and not in the AOT? The AOT experience and the tree of all of the elements has been moved into Visual Studio. We have a new Application Explorer, which is equivalent of our AOT. And we have this property sheets with all the property and metadata. You'll notice that the shell, and the wrapping and the housing is really Visual Studio, but the concepts and the modeling and the coding in X++, all of those are very much AX experiences migrated forward. Is the work list available in the dashboard? Yes, it is. The very far left is a list of links to items that are work items assigned to me. I didn't show that. Next question is around the application supported on Firefox. At this time, no. Early on, there were some issues with Firefox, and we need to go back and do some additional testing on Firefox to support it. It's one of the browsers that's currently missing from the list that we want to take a look at. Is the grid filtering for a lookup still available? Yes. When you're inside of the a lookup form or a lookup field, opening up the lookup form, which is a grid, the given column in there supports the same filter capabilities. And I didn't mention this, but Control-G is the shortcut we use when focus is in a grid column to open up that Excel-like filter experience. Is there any limit to the number of users? That one is based upon the sizing that's available for systems within Azure, and so I'm going to defer on that particular question. And I'll take just a few more since we're running long on time. Sorry if I'm not getting to all of these questions. I'll have to take a look at them offline and try and get back. Is the retail also migrated to a browser-based product? That's another one I'll have to defer to another team. Can I use the address bar to navigate? Yes, you can. Although we don't expect end users to use the browser address bar, we are using modifiable URL parameters. You can change the company, you can change the language, you can change the menu item. All of those things are things developers commonly do within the product to navigate to very specific records. Customizations in the previous version, we still support the same overlayer customization. The process of migrating customizations is just like migrating primary forms. In addition, we have some new customization capabilities that reduce the conflicts that happen around our extension model, but that would be a separate topic to dive into. The shortcuts that exist are no longer valid. That, I think the best answer is to take a look at our shortcuts page on the Wiki. Sorry that I wasn't able to highlight that today. That shows all the existing shortcuts. Is there a need to show the ones that maybe we can look at providing a list of the shortcuts that were available in 2012 that have been changed to something else? We hadn't focused on that right now, but that could be something we could look at. Is there a record preview pane like there was at the bottom for the customers all list? No, there isn't. We took that away in our modeling as we move forward. Instead, we're guiding users to switch over to the details view with the navigation list open on the side so that you can switch records and then you get a more full experience of the customer in terms of the information that's there. Part of that is because we had migrated to, or encouraging people to move together the list page and the details page into a single one to help promote performance as the users move between the list and the details. You don't have to open separate forms and copy queries between them. And this was the change away from the preview pane was in relation to that. I'm going to skip over upgrade and printing questions. And just trying to see if there's some here that I can. Can you view the query be used on a form? That was one of the capabilities that we have inside of our personalization experience, and there was a personalization pane that allows you to see the textual representation of the query. We do not, the web interface does not require SharePoint. We have written this from the ground up as a modern web application. We use SharePoint as a mechanism for storing document attachments, but in terms of the primary experience, we're not relying on SharePoint for our user interface. There was a question on opening pre-filtered lists on a query like in 2012. That's something that isn't making the R1 release, but is something we are looking at bringing back in a future update. There was a question on tiles in the workspaces being customizable. Can users add their own? We are working on personalization experience that allows adding new tiles onto the dashboard and to the workspaces. That's something that's still in process. In this particular, there was a question on the local installation of Office as opposed to Office 365. I am using Office 365 in my demo with the desktop version of Excel that was opening up. Because we've moved away, which is very similar just to a standard Office deployment, on your desktop. It's the same product that's there. But how we've done our Apps for Office plugin allows us to work with the Excel online as well as the mobile version of Excel. Okay. The question was around AX7 being available for both on-premise and Azure. Our initial release is on Azure. We're leading with the cloud first, and we are working towards an on-premise version of it that will come in a later update. We are dependent on a newer version of SQL Server and Windows Server that provides some of the same Azure capabilities that we're built on right now. Okay, well, we're about 15 minutes past. I'm sorry I'm not getting to all of the questions that people are asking. I'll try and take a look through and see which ones of these that I can answer. I do appreciate the time that you've all given in taking a look at this demo and the interest that you've shown in the new version of Dynamics AX and our client experience. Hopefully this helped you see how users can be more productive through the alignment of the Office 365, the ability to run this on a variety of browsers and devices, as well as the focus we've put into user productivity through data entry, filtering, and navigation. We believe this will be a big step forward for users on AX, and I appreciate your time. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Adrian, and thanks to everyone for so many great questions. As I mentioned in the chat, we'll leave the session open for just a couple more minutes after we conclude here. If you do have additional questions, enter them in. We'll get them saved off, and Adrian can take a look after we close out. There's also a survey after you close out that we really appreciate your feedback on. If you take just a moment to fill that out once you close out. Adrian, thanks again for taking so much time today and for presenting all the new material to our audience.
Thank you, Jason.
All right, with that, we will conclude today's event. Have a great day, everyone.